Welcome back. As we all know that the International Monetary Fund on Friday approved the $12 billion deal to Egypt, that very popular fund that has been a debate all over Egypt. It was approved by the International Monetary Fund on Friday after the fund's board approved the Egyptian economic program. And after the approval, the Central Bank of Egypt receives $2.75 billion deal tranche. Of course, we're going to delve into more details that are related to this deal and things that are going to be associated with that deal, that are going to be resulted by this deal. Of course, we all know that all funds by the International Monetary Funds reject any national projects to be implemented in countries. What kind of projects are going to be implemented after these deals? How is Egypt going to make this deal to the best interest of Egyptians? And how is the new generations to come in the coming decades? Are they going to suffer because of that deal? Are they going to benefit? Of course, there are controversial issues that are related very much to that deal. We're very delighted to have with us Dr. Mustafa, the economic expert. Good morning, Dr. Tammam.
A very good morning to you, sir. As my dear colleague Dina said, it's a controversial issue. And of course, there are advantages and there are disadvantages. But analysts would said that it was now a top priority, how to make this push to our economy. And it cannot be done except with this loan, but of course, in addition to hard work, to production, to activate many factors, for example, which had obstacles in the last few years. But today, it's our homework. First, before going into the details, are we ready to use those $12 billion in the most perfect way and not to waste any dollar to move forward, as I said, and to reach an economic leap?
Well, first to start with, the deal with the International Monetary Fund constitutes let us talk about the positive aspects of the deal. Certainly, it's a certificate to the outside world that we have a program and we have a strategy and we have a certain path, an economic path that we're going to follow up in order to overcome the difficulties that we're facing right now.
To add to this, sir, and I'm sorry for the interruption, just a few minutes even after the Central Bank of Egypt received this first tranche, $2.75 billion, Standard & Poor, S&P, and Fitch raised the category of Egypt to stable.
Yeah.
So it's an amen to what you have kindly mentioned, that it's a certificate to the whole world that we are ready to receive investments from all over the world, and it's guaranteed, let me say so.
Again, let us continue again about what you mentioned just now about the investments, which is very important. We said that's a certificate that we have a program and we have a certain strategy that we'll be following. However, as you mentioned in the beginning of the introduction in this interview, that it's not enough that we get the money. Mm-hmm. First thing, what we're going to do with the money, yes, how it's going to be used. Number two, we have to do our homework. Now it's our turn. It's not a matter of, we have been getting a lot of funds and grants from Arab countries, which since the 30th of June 2013, a lot of credit facilities from Arab countries, which reached $30 billion. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, these funds were used to purchase consumer goods, to buy fuel, and to subsidize certain products. They were not used in order to, they were not channeled into productive prospects. So the result was that they didn't reach anything. You see, it's you borrowed certain money or you got certain money, either you borrowed them or they are grants, but you misused these funds. Mm-hmm. It would be rather more wise from the government since a long time ago that they have taken these austerity measures that they have taken just now, you see. If you remember in February 2016, the jump of the dollar, the change of the exchange rate started dramatically. This was a sign, an alarm to the government and to the ministerial groups that there's something wrong going on in the market. They should have taken an action They shouldn't have waited all this time until we reached to this dramatic situation, you see. So if we took these measures since a long time ago, probably the situation would have changed a lot. On the other side, as you mentioned, we have to depend on ourselves. Let us, the funds, what was mentioned by the government, that these funds will be used to cover the deficit, the budget deficits. Again, we should depend on ourselves. We should start working. We should start not trying to apply austerity measures on every one of us. You see, it's not the matter, we should have, because we are all in the problem. We shouldn't put all the burden on the government, because the government will not be able to function unless there is cooperation between the citizens. And on the other side, there should be a hope. There should be a short term. You see, we should say the government didn't actually mention, if we do this after they took these actions, when there will be an improvement in the economy. They didn't. This was not very much clear. So until now, there are doubts, or there are certain mistrust. You see, again, and there are, and I don't know if you have watched the television yesterday or before yesterday. A lot of citizens are reading. There's a sort of dissatisfaction about, specifically from the poor people, about the price increases that occurred in the market. You see, we should give a certain plan when we're going to reach to an equilibrium on the short run, not on the long run, because because people are already in the bottom line.
Right. Dr. Tammam, speaking about the IMF fund, some financial experts had the reservations that those who are encouraging such strategies and policies of being funded by international entities like the International Monetary Fund are a little bit, this is a short-sighted strategy, because generations to come are going to suffer paying back. How are we going to be paying back? Paying back is going to be a harsh price that we are not going to pay for, but the coming
next
generations.
Yes.
Of course. And also, you raised a very important point, which is directing this very precious fund that we pay dearly, we are going to pay dearly for the right channels. So this is going to be the core problem. The third aspect is that what are the successful experiences that other countries went through when they gone through the same thing? I mean, like Russia, like other experiences who had the same funds but were dissected and weren't really very successful. So if you would like to elaborate on those 3 points.
I'd like to take the third point, which is very important. What were the countries that have followed the program of the IMF? What were the outcomes? Certain countries like Brazil and Chile have been successful in implementing the IMF program. But again, there was a plan for these countries not to depend on the future on loans again, that they have to do their own homework. It will be a temporary solution, and they have paid back these loans. On the other side, there are other countries, like in Greece, that suffered a lot.
Of course, Greece is a huge example.
Exactly.
And Russia also.
And Russia, that the programs have failed, and it was not only the IMF, the European community poured a lot of money in Greece, and probably, and as we all know, that things were not going as they should be in the right path. Really, to be frank with you, Greece is a very similar model to the Egyptian model. You see, there are a lot of common factors between the two countries, you know. So again, the Greek people, they were very...
You mean the social aspect of life?
The social and the cultural dimensions and the habits, you see. They are different, although they are in the European community.
So do we consider this good news?
So, but they have a lot of common factors, like in Egypt here, you see. So again...
that wouldn't be good to hear.
Well, these are the realities, you see, of the situation. Right. However, so it's again probably that we have to have a plan that we have to depend on ourselves. Again, now, I would like to emphasize a very important point. We had to go and I don't know if you heard Dr. Mohammed Al-Arian since 3 days ago, he said this was the only path that we have to get the funds, you see, to overcome our economic situation, because the Arab countries now are suffering with the drop in oil prices. They cannot afford again granting extra money. They have their own problems at the same time, you see. So it's very, very important, as we just mentioned in this interview, that we depend on ourselves and we start working. I'd like to tell you a very, very important thing I noticed when I just came back from Switzerland since 3 weeks ago. When you go in the streets in the morning, you don't find young people staying in cafes or wandering around the streets. You see, there are old people, 70s and 80s, very old people that are in the streets.
Yeah.
Okay. All the young people, you don't find any young people in the streets. So here, the reverse is true here. In this case, if you go downtown, on the cafes, you find a lot of young people staying, and you might say that there's not a lot of opportunities. But I have...
No, sir, I'm not going to say that. But I beg your pardon, whenever it comes to comparisons, I should be a little bit fair. Because I cannot compare Egypt to Switzerland, not to the culture, the social trends,
yes,
the education, number of
the
people,
facilities the government is giving to the citizens.
And even to Greece. I mean, I am not here giving excuses, but the past 5 years in Egypt, political turmoil, we knew that right after the 25th of January revolution, we had $36 billion strategic reserve, right, but it reached 16 billion Egyptian American dollars in reserve. Now it's above 20, and now we are moving forward, despite the fact that population is increasing, that we are already engaged in many mega projects all over Egypt, not one or two, but a lot, whether it's the new Suez Canal, whether it's the 1.5 million Fadens reclamation, whether it's the new capital. I mean, we are doing a lot in the same time. Whether we agree or we disagree with that, this is another story. But I should here speak more, if you permit me, about the homework which we should do after receiving already the first tranche of the IMF loan. The law of investment. I am now sure that foreign investors are going to come because their money is guaranteed. But on what basis? I mean, how they are going to be attracted to Egypt whenever the law of investment is still not finished till the moment? I see this as a riddle, as a dilemma, or an equation which I cannot solve.
I totally agree with you. I was about to talk about revamping the legal system as a whole. It's not only an investment law, you see, because...
But the investment law, if you permit me, sir, is a priority.
It is. And on the other side, you have the labor law again, because this is interrelated. And any investor, if he comes here and he wants to employ people, and then in the law you say, in the labor law here you say you cannot fire anyone unless you do this and this and this and this. You see, even if he's not doing well, the procedures are with the employee and against the employer. All this has to be changed, you know. On the other side, the investor cannot afford, except for the oil companies which go to arbitration, which is very, very expensive to go into to there. You see, he cannot afford entering into legal dispute and staying 10 or 15 years in the courts to solve his problems. You see, this is a very, very important issue. Number 3, it is the bureaucracy and the performance of the government employer. You see, it is the ministers facilitate. The minister can sign you an approval and with his own signature, but when it filters down and goes to the employee there,
every time I hear this, I wonder where is this one-stop shop issue, which we've heard about 15 or maybe 20 years ago. The one-stop shop, why it's not activated at the moment, this is also another question which I'm going to find an answer to.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, let me take it from Nermeen and also go back to the 3 items that we related. We just elaborated on only one. You talked about the experiences, the bad experiences, but there are other good experiences, not people who have been taking funds from the IMF, but who have built their own economy, have become superpowers, like China, for example, like Germany, like Malaysia, like many other, like Japan, after Hiroshima. I mean, those countries haven't been depending on the IMF or haven't been...
Or external loans or grants from other countries.
Why didn't we study those examples? I mean...
Well, this is a very, very important issue you have just
We could have taken
now.
Germany because His Excellency President El-Sisi was signing deals there, and he had a very important visit last year. I mean, why didn't we follow an example of Germany?
Again, as we just...
Chancellor Helmut Kohl, for example.
I agree with Nermeen when she mentioned we shouldn't be comparing Switzerland with Egypt, you see, because the cultural dimensions and the behavior and the attitudes and all this is quite different.
We can take the best. I mean, Germany could be a best example. I mean,
they're very much similar.
Many
to the
lessons
Swiss,
to be learned.
Although the Germans are far more tough, you know, and they're very systematic, you see, and they're one-track-minded. So it will be very difficult to apply this model here, you see, in Egypt.
But out of all those countries, we couldn't follow the example of the countries except the ones who are borrowing. I mean, some people, I'm just delivering the concerns of some financial experts, people who are against that fund. I mean, it's already done, and we're looking forward towards a prosperous leap, like Nermeen kindly just mentioned. But these are debates that are ongoing in the Egyptian streets.
I tell you, the challenge is the usage of the funds, regardless from where you get them, you see, because even if you get them from other countries, from the European community, or from the IMF, or from the World Bank, it's how you're going to use and optimize the usage of these funds. And you have to have a strategy of something called in finance the payback, how you're going to pay back these loans. You see, you have to have a study or certain strategy that if you take the 12 billion away, you have to have a plan that you have to pay back these amounts plus the interest, although the interest is minimal. But however, and you have both mentioned a very important point.
And
that
if you can allow me here, if I can get, do you think that there is a direct relation between paying back and making the best usage of that fund? I mean, if I invest on that fund and make the best use of it in projects and things that are going to have revenues, so that I can be able to pay back with conveniency in the coming decades?
Well, definitely yes. If you have a professional study done in order to see, to use to take these funds and put them in a project that is going to pay back all the installments on a regular basis, and probably, and it shouldn't pay back only, it should make a profit. There should be an addition to, for example, if we take the 12 billion, if we have a project, the added value should be 3 times more than the loan, you see, to cover the loan and the interest, and to have a certain profit, and to cover the expenses of these projects, you see. So it's very, very important. All this, really, it was, the government statement was very vague. They said we're going to use it for the deficit of to cover the deficit of the budget, you see. Again, the deficit of budget could be covered through other means, not...
Exactly.
I'll tell you something very, very, very simple. There are a lot of the taxes, there are a lot of big businessmen, they didn't pay the taxes that they should be paying. You see, we have to
That's what we're trying to say.
Activate the taxation system. You see, probably giving incentives to people in order, if you pay the taxes.
Or for the 100 million time, we could apply the capital gain tax.
Exactly.
Which is very easy, and we can cover the deficit.
That's
in just 1 month.
Number 2, we have to reduce government expenditure. Again,
exactly.
Very, very important,
that's another very important, vital point.
So you have a lot of, and number 3, you have to utilize the assets of the public sector companies, the unutilized assets of the public sector companies. You can maximize this, not through privatization.
This needs, sir, to think out of the box and to have different cadres or different way of dealing with things, as you kindly mentioned during your talk, bureaucracy. And here I should mention why President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi decided to have an investment council to be headed by him, not to give the chance of bureaucracy to continue the same way. But in my humble opinion, this is not a one-man show.
Right.
There should be a lot of other people responsible for this, and not to let the president, the head of the state, shoulder the responsibility of even signing papers.
This is ridiculous, yes. Totally unacceptable.
And this is exactly, as you
Yes.
kindly mentioned, this is absurd. This is something which we cannot depend on if we really want to say openly that we have entered a new era and Egypt is going forward on the right economic path.
Correct.
How do you see this? I mean, what are the solutions? Is it to have a cabinet reshuffle? Is it to change the circle, the financial circle? Is it to let them know that, for example, I have a strategy or have a 5-year plan, a 2-year plan or something, and if it's not fulfilled on the right path in the first, I mean, if I don't see that it's going forward in the right path from the very first month, you are going to go home, what to do?
I'll tell you. You see, again, I don't want to put the blame also on the 6 million employees in the government, because they were not given the chances to be trained properly. Mm-hmm. They entered into a system that they got used to it, and if they are not going to match up with this system, probably the big top managements, they're going to there'll be a sort of resistance against them. So they had to in order to get their bonuses and in order to get their increases, they had to go within this system and work with it, and they became part of it, you see.
Yeah.
So the point is, we have to apply the appraisal system. We have to have, if someone does a good job, we give him a reward, you see. If he's not functioning properly, he should be fired, very simply, you see. Again, to be fair, we should give a chance to these people to be trained and give them the right way how to do things and how to work.
Do we have time, sir?